So welcome to this webinar today, which is all about welcoming new email subscribers to achieve long-term engagement. So hopefully you're all in the right place. You weren't expecting something different. So here's a rough idea of the shape of today's session. It's going to start with a bit of a presentation from me all about welcoming new subscribers. We're then going to have a short break and some thinking time. So you're going to actually have 10 minutes where I'm not going to be talking to you at all. We'll then do 10 minutes of chatting to your peers in breakout rooms. And after that, we'll do a little bit of feedback as a group. Then I'll do another short presentation with some other ideas, and then we'll have a final Q&A at the end. So it's the first time we've run a session quite in this way. So please bear with me if anything doesn't run completely smoothly. And also it'll be really helpful to get feedback on how you like this format. So you will receive a survey after the event. And if you can fill it in with any thoughts you have, that would be really, really helpful for us. So let's get stuck in. So first things first, I'm going to be talking a lot about email service providers today. It's quite a mouthful. So as much as I hate three-letter acronyms, I will almost certainly call them ESPs to save myself getting tongue-tied. So your ESP is the system you use to send your marketing emails from. So this might be MailChimp, it might be Digital, it might be Wordfly, it might be Constant Contact. As part of your booking, I asked you to let me know which one you used, and MailChimp came out way at the top. Most of you are using MailChimp, but also Digital and Wordfly were quite popular as well. So some of you might have booked last minute, some people might not have been able to attend who booked, or you might even have changed your ESP since you booked. So what I wanted to do to start off is just a quick poll so I can get a picture of who we've got in the room. So we're going to do a poll now, and I just want you to let me know which email service provider you use. Let's just launch that poll. Oh, James, can you launch the poll? Because I've been logged out or something. So I'm hoping you've still got access to those polls. So just launch poll 1 for me.
I have the same issue. Sorry. Let's see if I can resolve.
Is it Phil or Hansel has joined the session as the Digital Culture Network? Anyone from the Digital Culture Network, can you have a look at the polls and launch poll 1 for me?
I think I can do it, Peggy. Bear with me. There you go.
Lovely, thank you. So I could only add 10 options into the list, and there were about 20 in the booking form of different ESPs that people are using. So if your ESP isn't listed, can you just add a note in the chat about which one you're using? So this is fun. I've somehow been logged out and I can't see the back end at all anymore. So Rose, it's all down to you.
Exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting. Have we got lots of votes coming in?
We're at 76%. So should we just give it another few seconds?
Yeah, let's give it a few more seconds. And by the way, you can choose multiples as well, because I know some of you are using more than one ESP. So select both if you're using more than one. There's a few people who are still just joining. If you've just joined, we're just doing a quick poll to see which email service provider or ESP you're using. If you're not using one, there is an option for that as well. Got some coming in the chat as well. We've got some own systems.
Yeah, I think given we've got some in the chat that we can probably end the poll now. So I'll do that and share it, yeah?
Brilliant, thank you, Rose. Got some I've not heard of, Sitecore. Is that showing up on the screen now, Rose?
Yeah, everyone should be able to view that.
I can't see it. What have we got? Rose, you're getting more involved in this than I think you were expecting.
46% of attendees are using MailChimp, which I think is unsurprising.
Yeah.
We've got 7% using Digital,
Cool.
4% Wordfly.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 4% using Civi CRM, 29% have chosen other, and then 11% have chosen none or they don't know.
Cool. Well, that is pretty much what I expected. It's very similar to what we saw in the booking form, so that's makes sense. And then we have got a few more different ones. So I'm not going to go into tons of detail about each of the different ESPs. As you can understand, it would be unfair of people who aren't using certain ESPs, and yeah, there's just too much of a wide range, but you can get in touch with me after this session if you want some more advice on the particular ESP you're using. I am going to talk a little bit later on about some particular features in MailChimp, but I'll keep it to a minimum so the kind of 50% of you who aren't using MailChimp don't get too bored. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks, everyone. So let's move on to the next bit. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking for about 15 minutes before our breakout session, and then about 15 to 20 minutes afterwards. And here's a rundown of what I'm going to cover. So I'm going to talk about a couple of ways you can welcome your subscribers. I'm going to talk a bit about email engagement and how that links to welcoming your subscribers. We're going to look at some nice examples that I've seen in the sector. And then we're going to have our some breakout rooms and a bit of discussion. And then after that, we'll come back and look at some of the technical aspects of welcoming subscribers. We're going to look at thank you pages, which is another option. And we're going to look at some more advanced automations that you can try out if you're kind of happy with setting up automations in your system. So first things first, what are the main ways you have to welcome your subscribers? We're going to be looking at two today. So the first one is the welcome email. And this is what we're going to spend probably the most time on today. So a welcome email is an email that you set up in your ESP and it sends out automatically whenever someone new signs up to your mailing list. The second thing we're going to look at is the sign up thank you page. So this is the page that appears after someone has submitted your email subscription form on your website. So let's have a quick look at some examples of these. Firstly, here are a couple of welcome emails. So the one on the left is from Belarus Free Theatre and the other one is from Darts. We're going to take a closer look at some of the features of each of these emails later on in the session. So as you can see, both of these are branded emails. They look similar in design to a standard email newsletter. What you might be thinking is that they look slightly shorter than most of the newsletters you send out or receive in your own inboxes. And then the second thing we're going to be looking at is thank you pages. And here's an example from Watershed. So this is the page that appears once the sign up to their mailing list has been confirmed. And again, we're going to take a closer look at the features of this page a little bit later on. All right, so now you know the techniques we're going to be looking at for welcoming your subscribers. Let's talk a little bit about why you'd bother doing it. So a lot of this comes down to email engagement, which is what we're going to look at next. So what is email engagement? It's all about how much people interact with your emails. And there are positive and negative ways people might do that. And all of these are tracked in your ESP. So some examples of positive engagement, these probably won't come as a surprise, but positive things are people opening your emails, people clicking through on your emails, and conversions. So things like how many people click through on your email to buy something from your shop, book a ticket, or make a donation. Just a quick note about email opens. I'm not going to go into detail about this today, but I just want to mention it. So some of you might have heard about changes to Apple's privacy policy, and that just means that email open rates aren't going to be as accurate as they previously have been. I'll share some more resources after today with detail about that. It doesn't affect click-throughs and conversions, it's just about email opens. But yeah, we haven't got time to look at that in detail today. And then the main examples of negative engagement with your emails are unsubscribes. So if lots of people are unsubscribing from your emails after you send them, that's not great. And then spam complaints, which is worse. So that's how many people are marking you as spam in their Outlook, Gmail, Hotmail, or other inbox. So as an email marketer, of course, you want your emails to be opened, you want them to be read. Ideally, you probably want people to be clicking through, making purchases, supporting your organization in different ways. But there's another reason that engagement is so important, and this is down to something called sender reputation. So your ESP is going to be keeping an eye on the balance between positive and negative engagement. And if you tip too far into negative, it's going to give you a bad sender reputation. In the worst cases, your ESP might block you from sending future emails. That's really unlikely for most of you, because I'm sure you are sending interesting content and you're sending it to people who have opted in to receive your emails, but it's always worth keeping an eye on the balance between your positive and negative. So what kind of numbers are we kind of looking at here? You want to make sure your open rate is tracking above 17%, ideally a click-through rate of above 2%. You want an unsubscribe rate that's less than 2%, but preferably lower than that. And spam complaints, none. You don't really want to be getting any of those. Having someone mark you as spam is worse than them unsubscribing, and that's why you should always be making it easy for people to unsubscribe. So not hiding that unsubscribe link and making it really difficult to find. So often when I speak to organisations, they're really surprised by how low an average open and click-through rate is. But bear in mind that what I'm talking about here is marketing emails. So if you're sending things like tickets via email, you'd want that open rate to be much higher. So what's all that got to do with welcome emails? Well, research shows that welcome emails can have double the engagement rate of standard newsletters. So it's a great way to increase that sender reputation. And also, if you can get people engaging right from the start, as soon as they sign up, it just means they're more likely to continue to engage with your future emails because you're setting that expectation right from the start. So let's talk a little bit more about how welcoming can help with that engagement and with that sender reputation. So first of all, it reminds people that they signed up to your newsletter. That sounds really ridiculous because you're going to be sending that welcome email kind of as soon as they filled in the sign up form. But remember that people have many interactions on the internet. I'm sure you've had days where you've got 30 different tabs open on your web browser. A welcome email is just a nice confirmation from one of those many interactions that they've signed up and they kind of remember you as an organization. The other thing is that sometimes people might be signing up through a different path. So they might sign up through a sign up form, but also if you're selling tickets through something like Eventbrite or through a different box office system, they might check a box that says they want to receive emails, but they don't necessarily connect that to signing up to your mailing list. So sending a welcome email that kind of reminds them that they've done that is a really helpful way of making sure that's kind of totally clear to them. The second thing is it can set expectations. So one of the reasons people might unsubscribe or stop reading your emails is they're getting emails they weren't really expecting. So in your welcome email, you can let them know how often are you going to send emails, what kind of content do they contain. So when you start sending the monthly newsletter or however often you send your emails out, that they know what kinds of things they're going to be receiving. A welcome email can give an opportunity to specify preferences. So again, if people are receiving emails that aren't relevant to them, they're not targeted to them, that can be another reason why they stop reading them or why they unsubscribe. In your welcome email, you can give them an opportunity to say, this is what I'm interested in. So this can be especially useful if, say, you've got a quick sign-up form that only collects email address. At a later stage, you might collect things like, are they interested in your family events or children's events or arts or music? What kinds of things is it they want to hear about? And then audience nurturing. Picture the scene. If you've watched my other webinar, you'll know this one. But if you send out a monthly newsletter, you send it on the Monday, the next day, Tuesday, someone signs up to your newsletter, they're going to be waiting 29, 30 days before they receive your next newsletter. If you send them a welcome email, first of all, it means they're not waiting before that first piece of content. So it really shows that you're kind of caring about that relationship. And then finally, key actions. So as I mentioned, engagement with welcome emails can be up to double that of a standard marketing email. So it's a great time to get some key actions from your audience. So maybe you've got a key web page you want them to look at. Maybe you've got a lovely welcome video you want them to watch. So setting that expectation that people engage from the off will hopefully lead to better engagement with your subsequent emails. So at this point, I just want to remind you that email marketing doesn't sit in a vacuum. It's connected to your wider strategy for your organization. So that means that anything you're putting into your welcome email should form part of a wider journey. And here are a couple of examples of what I mean. So you might decide to offer a 10% off in your shop for new email subscribers to encourage them to sign up. If your email marketing sat in a vacuum, you might send the code in your welcome email. You might add it to the thanks for signing up page. But in reality, you need to be working with the e-commerce team. If you've got a team, it's probably one person, or it might even be you. But you need to be agreeing the offer, setting it up, and deciding whether the promise of more subscribers merits the 10% off in the shop. In this example, the offer will hopefully increase subscribers. It might increase your shop sales as well. So it's kind of working in different areas of your organization. You need to decide whether this is the kind of subscriber you want in your mailing list, and is it the kind of customer you want in your shop. Another example might be if you're tempting people to sign up to your mailing list by giving them a downloadable resource. So you might send them the link to download the resource in a welcome email. Hopefully they'll download it and use it. But what happens next? You don't want that relationship with the reader to end at that point. So you might consider what happens at the end of the resource. Is there a link back to your website for further reading or advice? Or perhaps the reader can get in touch with someone at your organization for more information, a one-to-one conversation. Whatever the most suitable next step is for the person in your audience, just make sure that receiving your email fits in with your wider strategy and it doesn't just sit on its own. So with anything that you're putting into your welcome email, just make sure you're always considering that wider customer journey and the relationships you're building with your audience. Do you want people in your mailing list who just signed up for 10% off? Or do you want people who are engaged with your mission? What's the initial impression you want to make on your audience to develop that relationship? So there's no right or wrong answer. You just need to consider what you're doing against your wider organizational objectives. All right, so we've looked at what techniques we're using. We've looked at email engagement and why welcoming your subscribers helps with that. So let's look at a few examples from the sector to hopefully give you some inspiration for your own welcome email. So this first one is a really lovely example from Belarus Free Theatre. The email's fully branded in their new style, and it's got one really clear call to action, and it's about getting to know us. And that's a key part of the Belarus Free Theatre's strategy. When you click on that button, it takes you straight through to a YouTube playlist, which has been curated especially for new subscribers, and it contains introductions to the cast and crew. Beneath that main call to action, there's also the option to follow the theatre on different social media channels. So the hierarchy here works really well. The main objective is for people to watch the videos. It's in the orange, it stands out. But if anyone's wondering what their social channels were, they can find them really easily as well. So I spoke to Katie at Belarus Free Theatre, and she sent me some really amazing statistics for their welcome email. So we can just look at the comparison here from their most recent newsletter and their welcome email. So an open rate on their newsletter is about 26%, which is great, but their welcome email is tracking at 68% at the moment. And if you look at the click-through rate, it's 10 times as many people are clicking through on that welcome email. So this is what I mean about that engagement being so good when you capture people at that initial moment. Belarus Free Theatre recently relaunched their website, so they're going to be looking at the statistics in more detail over the coming months, and they're going to see how the welcome email is affecting their website traffic. But these initial results are obviously really, really positive. Here's another example from Darts. You saw this one at the beginning. One of the key things Darts wants to get across in their welcome email is that they're connected with a building called The Point. So they mention this straight away in the first paragraph. It means no one's going to be surprised if they get an email which talks more about the building than about Darts. So this is a really great example of setting expectations within that first email. Another really brilliant thing here is that they tell you straight away how you can unsubscribe. So this is a key way to make sure you don't get spam complaints. You need to make it as easy as possible for people to unsubscribe or change their preferences, because otherwise the easiest thing for them to do to stop receiving your emails is to just hit that spam button. So they also have an increase in opens for their welcome email, which is about 55% compared to 31% for their newsletter. And then finally, here's an example from Spike Island. So this is a really good example of one that's updated regularly. So the team at Spike Island check the content of their welcome email every month to ensure it's up to date and relevant. It contains information about the current exhibition. So this is updated every time an exhibition changes, and the colour scheme changes each time as well. So as you can see, it's a longer email than the other examples, but it works because it's clearly divided out into sections for each piece of information. And the main thing people are clicking on is what's on this month, finding out what's on at the gallery. The second most popular thing is taking you back to view past newsletters. So they've got an archive of their newsletters online. And this is another great way to give readers an idea of the kind of thing they'll receive in their follow-up newsletter. And it works well for Spike Island because they send a newsletter monthly. So if you've got that situation where someone signs up only a couple of days after one's gone out, they've got that opportunity still to look at it. So something to bear in mind with this is that the content for the welcome email and the updates to that content has to be factored into Spike Island's wider marketing plan. If you're working as part of a small team, or maybe you're the only person looking after all the marketing at your organisation, I recommend keeping the content as evergreen as possible. So this is what I mean by that. You might have a main aim in your welcome email, which is you want people to read the latest news at your organisation. You could embed the latest news in the email. If you do this, that means you have to update the welcome email every time a new article is written. But you could also link out to your news page on your website. So if you do this, you only need to update the welcome email if you want to change the layout or if you want to make changes to your website so that the page no longer exists. But in general, what will happen is as you update the news page on your website, every time someone clicks through from that welcome email, they'll just be taken to that most recent news. Great. So let's just have a quick summary of some of the content you could put into a welcome email. So firstly, a thank you. Just a quick note to say thank you for signing up. Who are you? Key pieces of information a new subscriber should know about you. Have you got a web page that explains it, a video they'd benefit from watching? What can people expect from your newsletter? What kind of content do you include? How often do you send it? Preferences, if there are different lists that people can sign up to, how do they update their preferences or how do they unsubscribe? You could include an offer. So the classic one I mentioned is a 10% off in your shop, but there's other options and it doesn't necessarily have to be money off. So it could be things like priority booking for events, exclusive content or here first, or it might be meet and greet, anything that you're able to offer as an organisation or have you got capacity to offer. If you're a membership organisation, reiterating benefits can be really helpful in your welcome email. And a key action the reader needs to take. So one key action you want the reader to take. So, you know, you might want to be increasing reads of your blog. So that would be the key action, read our blog. It's really a good idea to add a key action into your welcome email, making it really stand out so that people know what that next step is in their journey with you. Great, so that's my bit over for now. And what we're going to do in a few minutes is head out into some breakout rooms. So I'm going to do a little bit of kind of admin about the breakout rooms, and then I'm going to talk about what you're going to discuss in there. So the first thing is that breakout rooms won't be recorded. So hopefully that will give you a chance to kind of speak more freely, not feeling worried that you're being recorded. If you've had your camera off up until now, which I think you all have, you might like to switch it on during the breakout room so you can actually chat to people a bit more face to face. But because it's not being recorded, it does mean you need to take your own notes if you want to take any notes. And just remember that not everyone's going to be able to turn their camera on or use their microphones. So actually, I'm not sure, Rose, can they use the chat in the breakout rooms? You might not know this, I'm putting you on the spot. You can come in a few minutes to let me know.
Okay.
Cool. The second thing is live captioning is only in the main room. So if you haven't let Rose or James know yet, just make sure you do that in the 10-minute break so we know to keep you in the main room so that you've got access to the live captions. If you do accidentally get put into a breakout room and you're like, I need live captions, you can just leave the breakout room and come back into the main room and then you'll have access to those. You're going to be in small groups. We're going to put you in groups of about 4 or 5. And before you do it, so it doesn't feel too daunting, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do some preparation for what I want you to talk about. So hopefully you'll feel confident enough to contribute, and please do contribute if you're able to, especially for smaller organisations who don't really have people to kind of jump ideas around with. It can be really helpful just to talk to other people. So yeah, that'd be really nice if you can do that. And we'll be around to help. James and Rose and I will try to join each breakout room for a few minutes to see how you're getting on. All right, with that done, these are the questions I'd like you to have a think about in the next 10 minutes, and then you can discuss them with your peers in the breakout rooms. So firstly, based on what you've seen during that bit of presentation, what would you say the most important thing for a new subscriber to know is? What's the main action you'd like a new subscriber to take? So you might have come up with some ideas while I was talking about, oh, we've got a video actually, or maybe we'd like to create a video. We've got a great blog they can read. How does the action fit in with your wider journey? So how does that welcome fit in with, if you've got an offer, how does it fit in with your shop? All of those things we were talking about. And have you got a way that you entice people to sign up to your newsletter? What are you saying to people about what makes your newsletter worth reading? There's some more detail on these questions and some prompts in a resource that James is going to share a link to in the chat. So you can click through on that link, download a copy, and you can make notes in it yourself so that you've got those to hand to chat to people about. And once we've done the breakout rooms, we will come back to the main room and we'll have a chance to share some ideas and talk about what you've discussed in the breakout rooms. So what we're going to do now is take a 10-minute break. So during that 10 minutes, that will give you time to download the resource, have a little think about those questions, make yourself a drink if you want one. And then when you come back, we will put you into breakout rooms. Now, my clock I've got on my desk isn't very accurate. So James, are you able to just tell me the real time? Oh, it's 2:30 actually. We'll come back at 3:20, ready to go into the breakout rooms. And James, maybe you can just pop that in the chat that we'll come back at 2:40. And then we'll put you into the breakout rooms. So if you've got any questions during the 10 minutes thinking time, please feel free to pop them in the chat or just pipe up and me, James or Rose will try and answer them. Great. So let's have a look at how you might set up a welcome email. So first of all, a welcome email is an automation. So on booking forms, a lot of you did say you'd already sent automated emails from your ESP. But for those of you who aren't sure what that means, here's a quick explanation. So the easiest thing to do is to compare automations to a standard timed email, which I imagine is what most of you are doing for your general newsletters. So for a timed email, what you're doing is you create an email. You choose your recipient list. It might be your whole list. You might have several different lists and they get different newsletters. You choose your send time. And then once your email's ready, you send it to everyone at the same time. The difference with a triggered email or an automation is it's triggered by an action rather than being sent at a time that you choose. So you create your email and you choose your recipients, but then you're setting a trigger, and the trigger might be things like signing up to your mailing list, which is obviously what we're talking about today. It might be buying a ticket, it might be making a purchase in your shop. So all of those things could trigger your automation to run. You've then got the option to set a delay, so you can send it out immediately, or you can delay it for a few hours, a couple of days. And it means that people only then receive the email when the trigger is activated. So everyone in your list is going to be receiving that email at a different time. So as well as your welcome email or welcome series that is thanking people for signing up, you might be sending automated shop emails. So something that's triggered by people making an order. Thanks for your order. Here's your receipt. Here's delivery tracking. You might have booking confirmations going out by email. You might have e-tickets going out. So all of these are triggered by something the customer has done. And the beauty of them is that you don't need to send one each time someone carries out the action. Once you've set it up, your ESP looks after it for you. And also, because an automation is based on a user action, it's generally something that they're expecting, which is why the engagement rate tends to be higher. So let's take a look at some of the steps you need to take to set up an automation. I'm not going to go into detail about the different systems just because of what I said earlier, with everyone using different systems. But the steps are roughly the same in most ESPs, and they do generally have step-by-step guidance, videos to help you with the process. And the beauty of a welcome email is that most systems have got a template automation set up that you kind of just have to fill in. So it's a really great one if it's the first time you've set up an automation. So the first thing you need to do is create the recipient list. That's going to include anyone who joins your mailing list, but you can tweak it so that people who join through certain forms or set certain preferences are included in the recipient list or excluded. If you're using an integrated system like Digital with Spectrix, which some of you I think are using, or Wordfly with Tessitura, you'll probably be creating the recipient list in your CRM system rather than creating it in your ESP. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about there, we've got Phil and me, and we can help you out with sorting out how you set up a welcome email if you're using one of those integrated systems. The next thing is to set the trigger. And as I said, that's what sets that automation in motion. In this case, the trigger is really quite simple. It's just every time someone joins the mailing list, the trigger is going to be activated. You can then either set your welcome email to go out as soon as someone signs up, or you can set a delay if you want to. So generally, I recommend choosing it to send it straight away so that you're capturing the reader when they're already engaged with you. But if people sign up through like a purchase path or something like that, and they might be getting other emails, so maybe a booking confirmation, a receipt, e-tickets, you can set up a delay so that it doesn't get kind of lost in their inbox and in the kind of deluge of other emails they might be receiving. Design your email. So hopefully you'll leave today's session with a few good ideas of the content you want to include in your welcome email, which you can add into your ESP. At the bottom of the document that James shared earlier, there's a link out to a welcome email template, planning template. So you can also use that to plan the content out fully with the ideas you've come up with. Once you've kind of planned that content, make sure you consider how the email looks. So maybe you've got a brilliant photo that you that sums up your organization. Some of you have mentioned videos, so you might want to put like a video still in there. And think about your call to action. Does it really stand out in your design? And then once you've set it up, you can activate your automation, and it just keeps on ticking over. It will be sending a lovely email out to everyone who subscribes to your mailing list, making them feel really welcomed. There's just a few really important things to do. One is to test it. So once you've activated that automation, try signing up to your mailing list. Make sure that email comes through correctly, make sure it's all kind of nice and working. It's also a really good way to see if the user journey is good. So if you're signing up to your own mailing list, how does it make you feel? Do you feel nicely welcomed? Is the process really nice and straightforward? You need to keep an eye on your reports. So check back regularly to see what's going on. Are people clicking through on what you want them to? Are people using the 10% off voucher? If you've got analytics on your website, what's that user journey like? Once it's been going out for a while, you should build up a few useful statistics, and you can start making tweaks to your email to make it as effective as possible. And finally, you need to check that content regularly. So make a note to check back at least every 6 months to make sure your content's not gone out of date. This is really important, especially if your welcome email's got things like opening hours if they change, information about specific shows, or maybe you had one set up for information during lockdown and it might not be relevant anymore. You might also visually refresh it. So if you change your brand colors at any point, or if you want to add a more up-to-date image, you can do that. Great. So what I'm going to talk about now is thank you pages. So once you've planned out your welcome email, it shouldn't take you too long to plan out the content for a thank you page. It's almost like a light version of your welcome email. So before we get stuck into thank you pages, just a quick note on where you can and can't do them. So I will go into detail about what each of these things means, but you can come back to this slide if you want a kind of summary. You're probably collecting signups through a few different sources, and not all of them can have a thank you page. So if you've got a hosted form, that's a perfect example of a place you can have a thank you page. If you've got an embedded form, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. A pop-up form or through the purchase path, they're just not really suitable places to have a full thank you page. And I'm just going to show you some examples of what I mean by each of those things. So the first one is a hosted form. I imagine most of you who are using MailChimp might have set one of these up at some point. It's the most straightforward way to get contacts into your ESP because everything's looked after by the system. So you don't have to do any coding to embed it. You don't have to do any integrations with other systems. All of that data just goes straight into your ESP. So the form's got its own web address, and that is hosted by your ESP rather than being on your own website. Here's an example of a hosted form. This one was created in MailChimp. My screen's just gone blank. There we go, it's back. And if you've got one of these and you've never thought about what happens once it's submitted, it's likely that what people see once they subscribe is something like this, which is the opt-in confirmation page, or something like this, which is the double opt-in page. If you don't know what double opt-in is, I've created a handy flowchart. It's where someone enters their email address into your sign-up form, and they receive an email that they have to click on in order to be subscribed. So if they click on the confirmation link, they're subscribed, they're added to your mailing list. If they don't click on the confirmation link, the data never goes into your ESP. So it's just a way of making sure that people aren't it reduces the number of bots who can sign up to your form, and it means that it's completely GDPR compliant. No one's going to accidentally get subscribed. So these are the two pages: your subscription is confirmed or the double opt-in page. As you can see, neither of the designs are particularly interesting in terms of a welcome to your brand. It's not necessarily the kind of most visually pleasing, but there's stuff you can do. So firstly, you could rebrand it for your organization. And this is the Archangel standard confirmation page. Sets the tone for their emails. It's branded using the same colors. You can reword it. So this is the back end of MailChimp, and you can reword anything that's within those green boxes. So it's all about your organization instead of just the MailChimp tone of voice. You can't change that button. It's always going to say return to our website, and it's always going to take people back to the homepage. Based on your discussions in breakout rooms, I'm sure some of you have got ideas of better pages where you would like people to go on your website. And you might not want to be limited by this feature of MailChimp. But luckily, there's another option, which is where you can totally bypass those ugly kind of opt-in pages, and you can send people to a completely different page. And that's just in the form builder there. If you're not sure what the form builder is, get in touch with me and I can show you exactly how to set all this up. So instead of sending people just back to the home page, you could use that URL box to send them to a specific page on your website. You might take them to your blog, your YouTube playlist, your latest What's On guide, or this is my favorite, a designated landing page. The designated landing page is almost like what would be in your welcome email. It's kind of like you can mirror the two things, and it just makes it a little bit more personalized. So here's an example. This isn't a real example. This is one I just created very quickly. So this landing page is hosted in MailChimp. Again, you don't need to do any coding. You don't have to host it on your own website. It's all looked after in MailChimp. And the reason I like this option is it's specific to people signing up to the newsletter. You can acknowledge that and thank them for signing up. Whereas if you send them to just kind of like a web page, it's almost like it would feel a bit abrupt because you haven't even kind of mentioned thanks for signing up. So it's like a nice interim page. If you're using double opt-in, you can still mention to them that they're going to get an email. So all of that stuff is possible with those kind of MailChimp standard pages. But the big difference here is you've got total flexibility with the next step. So in this one, instead of sending them just back to the home page, I'm sending them to the latest blog. So it's what I was talking about earlier, just really thinking about that kind of longer customer journey. What happens once they've signed up? So the next one is an embedded form, and this is where you've got some code that's embedded into the code of your website. So it's not hosted on a different page. So you often see these at the bottom of people's websites. This is the Baltic shop. Often they just collect email address. Here's another example from Artreach. So with this type of form, it's not practical, it's not beneficial to have a thank you page because you're actually just going to take someone away from where they are on your website, loading up a thank you page, and it kind of disrupts their journey. But if you've got one of these embedded forms, after this session, just run a quick test through it, put your email address in, see what happens. Is it clear the form's been submitted? Because sometimes with these forms, what happens is the page just reloads and it's hard to tell if it's worked. So people might just continually kind of enter their email address. So just a simple message can be really helpful here. So here's an example of what happens when you join the Artreach newsletter. You just get a very simple message underneath. Thank you. Your sign up request was successful. There, it's just really clear that that's worked. There are some examples of embedded forms where it's possible to do a full welcome page. So this is a nice example from Watershed. It's an embedded form, but it's on its own page of their website. So it functions a little bit more like an ESP hosted form, like that MailChimp form I showed you earlier. So once you've submitted the form for Watershed, the image changes, you get a message that you're going to get the double opt-in email. And then once you've clicked on that double opt-in, you get a thank you page. It's got some more information about updating your preferences, unsubscribing, privacy policy. So unlike the hosted form that I showed you from MailChimp, you'd need support from a developer to set something like this up. So if you're wanting to do this, just think about how it fits in with your wider priorities. It might not be very high up on that list. And also just bear in mind that if you go to Watershed and sign up, see what it works like, just bear in mind they're quite a big organization. So, you know, what you can achieve just varies based on the resource you have available. The last one I'm going to talk through is a pop-up form. So some of you might have these set up. They come up on the screen, what's behind gets grayed out, and you can enter your details, subscribe, and then that window closes. Again, not really suitable for a full thank you page. The whole point of a pop-up is that it appears, you complete it, or you do the little X if you don't want to subscribe, and then it disappears and you can carry on with what you were doing on the site. But having said that, it's still nice to do a thank you. So if you have a pop-up and you're able to do it, just think about adding that little message that tells you, thanks for joining, we'll be in touch soon. In this example, they've also branded it with their branded colours. So again, just kind of have a go at signing up and see what happens on your own site. I realise we are at 10 past now, so I'm going to whiz through some of these more advanced automations. Any questions about them, obviously you can come back to me at a later stage, and if anyone wants to stay beyond 15:15, we can have a little bit longer for Q&A. So lots of you, the feedback from the breakout rooms was that people had quite a lot of information to get into one email. So a really nice way to get around this is to spread it into a welcome series or a drip campaign. So really useful for membership organisations where they might have several benefits. So you would drip feed these over the course of a few emails. It means people have time to kind of digest each of those different things rather than being overwhelmed with loads of information in one email. So just a reminder that in an email with too many calls to action, people can get decision paralysis and then they just don't click on anything. And you know, that's not great. So sticking to kind of one call to action per email can really help with engagement. Here's how a series works. The first part's the same. You create an email, your recipient list and your trigger. Once the trigger is activated, people receive the email. You then would set a delay. So with a welcome series, normally like 3 to 7 days is about what the delay would be. And then you would receive a second email, in this example, 3 days after they received the first one. You can then set a delay, send another email, and so on. A welcome series, most people I speak to do about 3 to 5 emails for a welcome series. It would depend on what you've got to say. But if you wanted people to update their preferences, that might be one email. If you then wanted to get people to watch a video, that might be another email. And just by dividing it out into separate emails, you hopefully get a bit more engagement. Just bear in mind with these that the cheaper plans on your ESP don't always offer the option, so you might need to upgrade. There are fiddly workarounds. I've set up a welcome series for my free MailChimp plan, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're not kind of confident about keeping on top of those things. So an upgrade might be necessary. You can also create really complex customer journeys. This is a really simple example that I'm just going to quickly go through. You can send a welcome email. If the recipient opens it, then you send them welcome email 2. If they don't open it, you would resend welcome email 1 to encourage them to read that one first. You can do really complex things with this based on whether they opened, whether they clicked, any tags they've got on their account, any shop purchases. This is an even more sophisticated ESP plan that you would need to do something like this. I would like to just quickly show you an example from our Angel, who have set up a really lovely welcome series. So the aim of email 1 is to get people signed up to some extra mailing lists. So they've just got one call to action there. You know exactly what you need to do. They also tell you that this is 1 of 3 emails. So it's really setting up those expectations in that first email. Second email is a really good example of evergreen content. So it explains a bit about what our angel do, and then the call to action takes you through to their what's on page. So they don't have to update the email, but their what's on page is always totally up to date. So whenever you click on that link in the email, it's always going to take you to that most recent information. And then their final email is a little bit longer. It's more in depth. You've already started to build that relationship, so you can expect people will engage it for a little bit longer. And they've got options for reading, listening, or watching some of their work, which is one of their key kind of aims for their subscribers. So together, these 3 emails offer a really lovely warm welcome and an engaging introduction to Art Angel. And then the final one, again, that we talked about in the breakout room feedback is about a segmented welcome email. So for those of you who have got different groups, so maybe you've got some teachers and you want to send them a tailored email, or you might have generic people where you just have a generic email that you don't know anything about them. So it's just kind of sending stuff that's tailored more to their needs. So here's an example. We saw Dart's welcome email earlier. We saw their general one. This is their teacher one. They send a specific one to teachers with tailored information about CPD training opportunities and things like that. These are the 2 emails side by side. So just visually, you can see that the teacher's one has got a school specific image in it. So it's just nicely kind of designed for teachers. So if you've got some distinct groups, here's an example of how you might use it. So you might have a teacher welcome email, which is sent to people who sign up on the education page, or maybe they select teacher on the sign up form. You might have the same thing for families. You have a family page, or they select family on the sign up form. You might have a general one, which is really important to do as a kind of a fallback option for people who don't select any options, or who you kind of don't know anything about. So they would get a more general welcome email. And that can be a great opportunity to say, hey, please update your preferences. We'd like to send you stuff that you're interested in. So I let you know about those things because I want you to know what's possible with your welcome email. So sending a series or sending a tailored welcome email. But I'm also a really big fan of baby steps. So if it sounds really overwhelming, just keep it in the back of your mind for the future and stick to creating a single welcome email that just goes out the same to everyone, because you can always add those segments. You can always add more emails later on once you've got the hang of kind of setting up automations. I had some homework I wanted you to do, but I realize we're at past now, so I'm not going to go through it. But you can look at this. I'll put it in the email to remind you what I want you to do. I do want you all to kind of commit to doing one thing, even if it's just signing up to your newsletter to see what it looks like when you do that, how it feels to be someone signing up. There's some testing tips here, but we don't need to do that. I'm going to just whiz through and to say to you that you aren't alone. So the main part you need to do is work on the planning of the content. What do you want to say and who do you want to say it to? And then if you get stuck on setting that up in your ESP, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here, well, not to do, but I'm here to help you with it. So if you get stuck, you can get in touch with me. We can set up a one-to-one call. If it's something simple, it might just be a case of you emailing me and me sending you a document. But just remember that you're not having to kind of go back to your organization and just kind of do it on your own because you've got the support of the Digital Culture Network. So please do get in touch with us if you've got any questions. James has already mentioned in the chat, but we will share the recording and I'll drop you an email with some of the resources I mentioned. I'll reshare those planning templates and questions and things like that. And there's our website that you can join. There's our email address, and please follow us on Twitter. So we're at @ACE_DCN, and if you're not already subscribed to our newsletter, please do that. You can sign up to our newsletter on our website. Thank you so much for joining today. Just a reminder that we'll be sending out a satisfaction survey soon. If you can fill that in, let us know how you found it today. Did you enjoy going into the breakout rooms? Was it long enough? Was the session too long? Did I talk too much? Just let us know what you thought, because it will really help us with planning our future sessions. And other than that, I think I've covered everything other than future DCN webinars. I don't know if anyone can jump in and tell me what's coming up, but you can find all of our future webinars on our website, and we announce those in our newsletter as well. Thanks again for coming, everyone.